Hello and welcome to the EV Cafe Takeaway, a podcast focused on that zero-emission future that we all hope for. Every week, as you know, I'm joined by one of the lovely members of the EV Cafe team, and that this week is the wonderful John Curtis.
Do you know what? I'm very excited because I got chosen today. It could have been any of the team, but Paul said, talking to Abby Chicken from Openreach, and I said, oh, yes, please.
Oh, why spoil the surprise, why don't you? So anyway, everybody, each week we get joined by amazing innovators, pioneers and collaborators. Who could it be this week? I just don't know.
Do tell.
Well, let me tell you, John, it is Abby Chicken from Openreach, the head of sustainability. We are thrilled to have you, Abby. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I don't know what to expect now.
More of this.
Chaos, generally.
Feels good.
Oh, dear.
Excellent. So, Abby, listen, it's always good for those people that have been living under a rock that don't know who Abby Chicken is. And even who Openreach are, because I think it is worth explaining Openreach and BT, because BT and Openreach and all that kind of stuff, and what your role is as head of sustainability, because we know there's a fleet team out there and they're working hard. We've even heard some news from them in the last couple of days. But talk to us about what you do within this setup that we have.
Sure, thank you. Hopefully I'm slightly more straightforward than the relationship between BT and Openreach. So I have been at Openreach for about 3 years. And my role is... So actually, no, let's start with what is BT and what is Openreach. So we are a wholly owned, commercially independent subsidiary of BT Group. Catchy. So what that means is BT Group have the governance. They are our umbrella parent. But for reasons of the government wanted to enable the building of broadband, fast full fibre broadband across the UK. So they said, actually, BT has had for a long time the network to make this competitive, to encourage competition and sort of market forces to work. We're going to make Openreach independent, which means we work with about 700 different customers. And we treat them all equally. So BT doesn't get sort of first dibs on any of our products. It doesn't get special information. We have to treat everyone the same. It also means that the poles and ducts that were part of BT, Openreach is now the custodian of that network. And it means that anyone can build on that network. So a lot of our competitors build on our existing telegraph poles and use our ducts, which means that they don't have to build anew. You don't get lots of competing bits of infrastructure, multiple telegraph pole routes and things like that. In theory, it doesn't work perfectly, but that's what we're trying to do. So we are on a mission to build full fibre broadband to the nation. We build absolutely everywhere. So we're out in the Scottish Islands, rural and mid-Wales, all the urban centres. So you will see us a lot. And we are most famous for our huge fleet of vans, which is what you mostly see.
Yeah, because that's the touch point, is the vans. And you don't go very far in this country without seeing an Openreach van, which I suspect is a blessing and a curse, in that trying to run a fleet where your vehicles are instantly recognisable must throw up all manner of challenges.
It does. I mean, it's one of the things. When I moved, so my background is retail, and I moved from Selfridges, so luxury department store, to Openreach, and people went, Open who? And I thought, they've been in your house, definitely. I said, every time you see an Openreach van between now and my leaving drink, stick £1 in a pot and you can buy all the gin and tonics. It'd be great. And it's true. People said, oh my God, suddenly you see them everywhere. So we do have this huge fleet. And the thing that gets kind of nerdily interesting is how they're branded. So the new branded vans, the blue ones are diesel, the green ones are EV. So we have in my family a bit of a, how many EVs can you spot? But yeah, they are all over the place and in sort of all communities, and they are a home parking fleet. So our engineers kind of take them home, leave them on the drive overnight or outside, which brings its own challenges when it comes to EV. Yeah, so sorry, I was saying I didn't answer the question on what my job is. So my role within that is, so BT Group set our net zero target, but the sort of nuance, the operationalization of that. So how do we translate hey, you've got to hit net zero by 2031 into what do we actually need to do in the network with the fleet? How do we engage our stakeholders internally and make it relevant to what Openreach does? So from an emissions, it's majority fleet. If it's about material usage, so the second pillar of the Openreach strategy is using less and wasting less. So kind of really digging into what are the materials that we use? How can we engage our suppliers on plastic packaging and removing that? And then the third one is engaging our teams on nature, because as I mentioned, we're everywhere. We are out in very rural communities. So how do we take responsibility for the impact we have and ideally leave things in a better way than we found it?
And nature's really important to you, isn't it? You're not only in your work life, but privately. A little bird tells me, if you pardon the expression, that you do have a genuine love for wildlife.
I do indeed, yeah. I mean, I always have, if I'm honest. I mean, let's just be real about this. Like, I've got a lot of feathers sitting on my desk. I've got a lot of nature stuff around here because, it just helps. I've got a big tree poster behind the screen. I am a trustee for Surrey Wildlife Trust. So I'm vice chairman now, actually, of Surrey Wildlife Trust. Check out. I know.
Selfridges and a vice chairman.
It's brilliant. I don't really know what my responsibilities include as vice chairman over and above being a trustee, but it's fun. I've been working with the trust for pretty much since lockdown. So it was that point where we all suddenly went, oh gosh, haven't we got lovely places on our doorstep? And aren't we really grateful for having those lovely places on our doorstep? And I thought, yeah, I'd quite like to spend more time sort of devoting more of my time and energy to protecting those and engaging people with that.
So sustainability really is a fundamental part of who you are.
Yeah, it's not just a job; it's a lifestyle. It's so cheesy.
But it's true, isn't it? We all find that you try one element of the mix, if you like, of sustainability. It might be recycling, it might be turning the temperature down because you're tight, all sorts of things. But then you start a journey. How did your journey start? Was it in your childhood that you were really interested in wildlife and nature and so on, and that grew into a sustainable career, or did it happen in a different way?
No, it was my childhood. I feel like I should be on the couch. Back in my childhood, I grew up in a beautiful part of the country. So my parents moved when I was about 8 years old to effectively the Wye Valley, so edge of the Forest of Dean, Wye Valley, sort of South Wales, South Gloucestershire, and we were free range kids. We were out and about. We had a little kind of bit of common land. We used to go and build dens.
Free range chicken.
Oh no! I can't believe you did that.
No, I can't either. I said before I started, I'm not doing this. I'm not going down the A chicken route. It's not happening. Behave.
Oh no, this is a perfect
6
segue
minutes.
actually to the childhood. So I went to this school, and just by chance, we had this teacher, Mr. Walker, and Mr. Walker was a one-man crusade for nature. So he started this club, and it was called the OAC, the Ornithologists and Conservationists Club, which when you're 8 years old is quite hard to say. But so everyone just joined. You were just all part of this club, and we had these things that you got a little badge if you could name 25 birds or 25 trees, and they'd have flashcards, and you'd all test each other and get these little badges. It was all very exciting. And we used to go and spend time volunteering. So they had a nature reserve, and we'd go and do that. But so when I started, you've got a big poster on the school notice board, and they put my name at the bottom, A Chicken. And he came along and was like, oh, crossed it off. Put my name on the bottom, crossed it off. He was like, why does somebody put A Chicken on the bottom? So yeah. Yeah. There is a movement in the sustainability sector of people with bird names. There's quite a few of us. So there is one of the leads at Barrett Homes, Bookie Bird. I know Abigail Heron. There's a lot of us. I think we should form a club.
But only 3 chickens on LinkedIn. I looked this morning.
Okay.
So there are 3 chickens. That's it. So you are a really endangered species, and we need to look after you.
I imagine they're probably my family. like Simon Chickens, my brother. I did get once, this is such a weird segue, but I once got a notification from LinkedIn saying, Abby Chicken has followed you on LinkedIn. And I thought, that's weird, that's me. And then there was this woman who'd married somebody. And so she changed her name to Abby Chicken. And I just thought, and she said, just to let you know, you're not the only one. I was like, but I have been the only one, and you're just an imposter. And then she got divorced, and I was like, okay. Yeah.
Well, do you know, Abby, you can get those, like, you can decide what your profile name is going to be. So I, of course, you just say Paul Kirby, so LinkedIn /in, Paul Kirby. So that's what I selected. And they went, oh, no, you can't be Paul Kirby. And I was like, well, why? Well, because there's others. Right. Okay. So you've got to choose another one. But you can be the Paul Kirby. So, of course, I am, according to LinkedIn, the Paul Kirby. So that's what you should be, Abby. You should be the Abby Chicken.
Okay. I'm going to go and check that out after this.
The other Abby Chicken, who was the latecomer, should be known as Abby Quorn. It's like chicken, but not.
Sort of chicken pieces. You get these sort of, they're like
Abby Nuggets.
I can't believe it's not Abby Chicken.
Oh, brilliant. Well, gosh, who knew that we would be here? But so let's get back to something vaguely important. Not that the names are important. Names are very important, and we've got a chicken on the podcast, and that's a first, and probably a last, I imagine.
Well, I mean, you can find her on LinkedIn. Invite her on.
Yeah, but Abby, so it was embedded in you from very early doors, and of course, with this nature name, and now discovering that there's lots of other people in the sustainability world that have a bird name that has become into the sustainability world. But what was then the journey? Because I mean, you took a Master of Arts and at Oxford, so obviously pretty good. Am I right in saying that you might have actually been involved in the Commonwealth Games?
Gosh, you did do a deep dive on my LinkedIn, yes. I raced for Wales in the 2002 Commonwealth Games. I'm a cox, or I was cox once. Yeah.
So how you're quite ambitious then?
Yeah, I am quite ambitious. Although that's not how that started. I started because I moved to a school where they played lacrosse and I couldn't figure out how to pick up a ball. And then they said, you can go and try rowing if you want. And it's a lovely experience. You're out in sort of predominantly early mornings, mist rising over the river, lots of birds. Like, it's just beautiful. But then that element of competition. I mean, I say competitive. You are a passenger. Like, you're not sporty. You just sit there and shout at people, which is, I have made an industry out of sitting here and shouting at people for most of my life. But I definitely had that real grounding in being connected with nature and being outside like all the time. So doing that as a sport is not like a lot of sports where you're on a court or on a pitch. You're out on the river in the wilds. It's just lovely.
But it sounds, Abby, like you're a leader. You're a natural leader. The cox is that very, very vital human being, usually a small human being, who's in the boat, calling the strokes, keeping people to time, pushing them hard to give more than they do ordinarily. Is that a natural place for you to be?
Yeah, I think so. I think one of the things that I learned from a really young age through coxing was sort of the psychology of motivation. How do you get the best out of different kinds of people? And there is a fairly bald gender split where, you tend to have women's crews who like to be kind of encouraged and reassured, and then men just want you to shout and swear at them. And it's, that's kind of held mostly true. But you do start to think about, what is, if you want to get somebody to change, like, what is the psychology and the messaging that you need to put out there, and what tone, which I think has been really helpful in almost everything else, especially sustainability, because you've really got to be able to be multilingual and speak different ways in different languages to different people. So, you've got to
speak driver, don't you? That's the interesting thing, because the things you've learned in your formative years will have informed the transition to EV and Openreach, I guess, in that drivers have a particular way of looking at change, and they like the van and they like how they do it and fuel it and drive it and all that stuff. Suddenly, here's a new game in town where we need a bit of direction, bit of support, bit of love, bit of knowledge and training. It's key, isn't it, that good leaders take that transition forward?
Yeah, and I think recognising that this isn't just a key swap. This isn't easy for some people. And I think on a national level, we've not been great at that. It's kind of easy to go, oh yeah, switch to EV. Here's your van, here's the plug, crack on. And actually, we all sat in the back of our parents' car as they filled up, and everyone knows how that goes. You know where the petrol station is. You probably got some sweets, or for me, Tiger tokens from the SO in the 80s. We went down I went down this whole sustainability wormhole of the marketing that petrol stations did to kids in the 80s, where somebody said, oh, I got a little BP truck. I had a little lion, not a lion, tiger from Esso. So into nature, can't tell my species. So yeah, and we saved up. I used to egg my parents on to go to the Esso so we could get more tiger tokens so I could afford this little cuddly tiger. But all of that, we take for granted. And then suddenly we say to somebody, oh, you don't need to fill it up to full. My wife plays petrol roulette and really deeply loves kind of how close to empty can you get it. And you don't do that with an EV. Like it's a whole kind of psychology. It is just a behaviour change. But while it seems sort of trivial, it's not. It's enough that when it's a voluntary change, you've got to kind of overcome all of that to get people on board, because otherwise, why did they bother? It's just another thing I've got to think about. I don't need to. I'm not going to. Don't worry about it. So that's been a journey for the Openreach, and continues to be a journey for Openreach, because we don't force people to take an EV. We just would like them to.
And is that because obviously we'd spoken earlier briefly about a big order that's just been placed from Openreach and BT as a wider business for I think 3,500 vans. So there's obviously in the next 12 months going to be a lot of drivers coming to this for the very, very first time. Now, I think 3,500 vehicle order is a massive achievement, and it is really, really commendable that the business is taking or biting off that bigger chunk of change that is going to hit the business. It's probably nearly somewhere around 10% of the total BT fleet, right? So that's an incredible move forward. What do you think has been the biggest challenge to get to this place, but also the biggest challenge that will be in delivering those 3,500 vehicles? What are the challenge to this place and the challenge for delivering those 3,500?
So the challenge to get here has been sort of all the business case stuff. Can we get our hands on them? The chip shortage after sort of Russia-Ukraine invasion meant that it was really difficult. The supply chain just wasn't there, so we couldn't get our hands on the right kind of vehicle for us. Then there's the business case for EV tends to be pretty good when you take into consideration the low cost of maintenance and repair, but fuel prices suddenly fluctuated massively. So where it was cheaper to fuel an EV, then suddenly it wasn't. And, so we've had to kind of ride out that bit. There's been everything that's been going on in sort of now two governments. So the flick-flacking on the ZEV mandate and just not having that consistency and business continuity, that real confidence that this is where we're going as a nation. So then people invest in it. And that affected us. We take full advantage of the plug-in van grant. And there was was due to expire in March of this year now, 2025. So, without that certainty, being able to place those kind of orders, that's not insignificant cash for us on that many vans. So it was kind of wrangling all of those different things, working with OZEV and the Department of Transport, and trying to make this make sense from a business point of view, because, commercially, nobody's going to do something that makes the business, is prohibitively expensive or operationally not viable. And so we have to make both of those two things true. It needs to be affordable, and we need to make sure that it enables our engineers to do what they're setting out to do. We're not going to put somebody in an EV if that means that they can't do their job. business basics, isn't it? So we've had to do a lot of reassurance, a lot of scrutiny of kind of who gets the EV and is there the infrastructure available for them. We do install charging points for engineers who have the ability to take that. So if you've got a drive and we can put in a charging point, then great, that's really straightforward. If they park in some of our exchange buildings, and some of them do, then really straightforward as well. But for somebody who's out in some very rural patch who doesn't have a predictable route, we don't tend to drive the same route over and over again. When, like Royal Mail have full predictability, when you post paper round, where your kind of post route is, and where the charging points are, and how long it's going to take. Whereas our teams will go to a job, and for the teams doing civils and kind of this sort of more complex engineering, they're powering a lot of tools off the van as well. So what would be, I think, a worst case scenario is you get stuck on a job that's happening late into the night, and you've got beacons on the top and you've got some tools being powered, and then you're stuck and you can't get home. And so we have had, we were trialing an electric digger, and then the team had taken a diesel bowser and a generator to make sure that they didn't get stuck. And I thought, point for innovation, engineering solution right there. It's sort of missing the point, but actually that is the challenge we face. So it was quite a nice way of illustrating, how they'll get around it, and they'll just be like, yeah, we'll use the electric digger, but that's how we're going to use it. So that's sort of where we've got to now. Over the course of the next few years, I mean, the charging bit is probably the most challenging bit, just making sure that people have definitely got access within a reasonable walk from their house. Somebody said you've got to be able to charge an EV within a 3-minute walk. I thought if I had to walk 3 minutes to where my car is parked, I would be a bit pissed off, to be honest. That feels like quite a long way from my house. I park on the street, and I take it as a massive bonus. If you get the one that's closest to your house, you're like, come on, yes. But sometimes you've got to park up the hill. It's probably only about 30 seconds, but you're just like, oh God, it's miles away. Yeah. And in the rain, and you've got your shopping. So actually, again, it's that sort of mindset shift of, is that reasonable? And is that the behaviour change we're going to take a nation on? Probably not, because we're all like water. We trickle downhill. We like things easy. So we've got a bit of the hearts and minds to do, and a bit of kind of mapping. We lease our vans. There are enough coming to lease end that it will just be a case of, okay, you're in an area where there is enough charging infrastructure, or you've got your own. Get on with it nicely. Here are some inspiring case studies. We've got some engineers who are really passionate about their EV. And the best ones are the ones who are like, oh, I didn't really want to do this, but I got sort of talked into it, and now I would never go back. So we tend to kind of get those, bank that, get them to do a video testimonial saying exactly that. And usually the reasons they love their EV are not because they're saving the planet. It's because, it's got a cup holder and it's got Apple Play, and isn't it great? And you can set it to heat before you get out of the house in the morning, so you get into a van and it's nice and warm. And I'm there for all of that. I don't really care about the motivation. If you like it and it's a nice thing to drive, then you'll get on board. So that's what we're trying to sell.
Is there a flip side to that, Abby? Is there a counter argument and you have some drivers who say, I've tried EV, it's just not for me?
Yes, we definitely get a few who said, I was really up for it, and actually it's just not working for the job that I do. And they tend to be people who drive a lot longer distances. So we do have some teams who will drive, especially kind of manager level, where they'll drive between patches. So they might be doing 150 miles in a day. 150 miles in a car, probably doable. You need to have a bit of planning and a bit of confidence on where you're going to park and charge and things like that. But if you're driving a tonner and that is loaded to the rafters with tools, then 150 miles is actually a problem, especially in winter. So yeah, making sure that we've got, for those people, sometimes people are like, I've just got to stop on the motorway, and even a rapid charger is still longer than you would spend fueling up a van. So, oh God, yes. I've got to sit there for half an hour. And actually, what if that charger doesn't work? Or what if there's somebody on it and I've got to wait 20 minutes for them to finish and. So we're kind of fighting a lot of doubt and a lot of fear, and then also a wave of red top press saying, my granny's EV blew up in her face, you shouldn't have one. If you have an EV, then all of these bad things are going to happen to you. Thanks, Rowan Atkinson. Yeah, that's quite hard to counter, because they'll hear a lot more of that and they'll tune into a lot more of that than they will to our internal comms messaging.
So how many of your electric vehicles have actually blown up?
To my knowledge, none have blown up.
There you go. There you go.
Well, the sort of research opportunity as well. We talked to, so the guys in the St Thomas Foundation are talking about tyre dust, so particulate matter. We know tailpipe emissions are kind of looked after, but actually there is this thing about REVs causing more potholes. Probably not as many as SUVs, but anyway. And is the wear and tear on the tyres meaning we're breathing in all of this particulate matter? And we said, we would love to volunteer our fleet and the sort of service records of that to see if there is anything in it, because I can't say, hand on heart, it's true or it's not. So far, the wear and tear seems to be roughly on a par with diesel on the tyres, and there are tyres that you can choose that reduce wear. So we're not seeing a higher kind of churn rate on tyres, but actually doing something where we get scientists to kind of go, actually, we've looked at a really big data set and we think this is true or it's not true, and then we can kind of take action. So, with a fleet of our size, I think there are interesting, we're driving everywhere, so you get kind of urban and rural and different speeds. So it makes for quite a nice data set.
And do you see that as part of the role of Openreach as a whole, or your personal role to be able to make this kind of data available? Because the reality is the market is going forward at the pace it's moving at, but it's predominantly in the big fleets, isn't it? It's predominantly in yourselves and Royal Mail and DPD and others that operate at scale. Mighty, another one, and it's those kind of companies that are now amassing this wonderful data set that's really, really helpful, very, very insightful, but it's generally internal. Is it often that you're doing that kind of sharing, and is it a responsibility that you own personally?
Yeah, it is. It's a bit of a two-way street. We work with all of the people you've just mentioned. We talk regularly with big fleet operators because we share a lot of the same challenges. We have some interestingly different challenges, and that's always kind of useful to learn. We tend to join forces when it comes to speaking to the government. So some of us sit on the Electric Fleet Coalition or in Climate Group's EV100, and that helps kind of see what else is going on, who's interested in what. If we want to have a conversation with somebody about, let's say, the inclusion of electric vehicles in ULEZ, then it makes sense for us to do that together and then sort of be a voice of a community. So we get benefits from it. And equally, I think there are ways of us using our combined data to help. We've made a commitment to transition the majority of our fleet to EV. And so everything that helps counter and helps the sort of nation take action and want to do this adds to that. Makes it easier for us in the end. So we have quite we've got a really strong public affairs team who have regular relationships with kind of various government departments and MPs, and so having that conversation over and over again and helping make the case again sort of counters what we were hearing at the back end of last year, which is nobody wants EVs. We can't hit the ZEV mandate targets because nobody's buying them. Well, actually, we do, and we are. And in a few years' time, traditionally, Openreach has been the kind of the source of white vans across the nation in the second-hand market. Once our EVs come to the end of their Openreach life, then there will be a lot more EVs available on the second-hand market. So then you might see a kind of a different level of engagement because they will be affordable and they're racked and kitted out. So lots of people can use them.
Fantastic. I love the ownership that both as a business and you've taken. And Abby, I've got to say, in all my interactions with you, I've really found you somebody so knowledgeable and very passionate about this space. Is there somebody in the background that has been inspirational or mentoring or in your life, just broadly, that have made you the human being that is able to carry yourself in the way that you do and to tackle these challenges that you do at the highest point of the game? You are right at the very pinnacle of pushing this trail forward. Who's kind of given you the inspiration to kind of break down existing barriers, move through? What is it in your life that's done that?
I don't know, to be honest. I mean, my family nickname me Scrappy Doo because I am quite fighty and I get quite angry about things. And I'm kind of like, come on, let's take it on. Like, I might be quite small, but yeah, come on, let's do it. And I was kind of reflecting on sort of what would you tell your 15-year-old self? And it's still like, your dad's not right. My dad was very much of the kind of swim with the tide. Just, you don't want to put your head above the parapet, like, be good at what you do, but like, you don't want to rock the boat here. And I think I've spent like my entire life kind of going, nah, don't like that. I'm just not like that. Yeah. And it started, I was working in John Lewis on Oxford Street. So my background was retail and I was running sort of food retail stores for Waitrose and then the John Lewis Food Hall. And I don't know if you know much about how John Lewis is set up, but everything goes through council. So every decision is kind of fairly democratic. And somebody said, why doesn't John Lewis take part in Pride? So Pride in London used to go along Oxford Street, right outside their doors. And they obviously went and had a little think, and they came back and said, we don't take part in political protests. And I thought, nah, like, I don't know. At the time, Pride didn't feel particularly political. It felt quite celebratory. And I just thought, no, there's loads of brands who are doing this that I don't think that's quite right. So we created this network, and it started as should we just see who's interested? Let's put a poster up and get everyone for a drink. And we had 70 people turn up at the first one. I thought, all right, okay. And honestly, I didn't think there was a huge issue. I felt like John Lewis was quite an accepting place, that, it was safe to be out and all of that. And then we started to get letters from people. And if you're in central London, and I was working in central London stores, it probably is quite accepting. But actually for, the young guy who worked in a really rural supermarket, and he said, oh, my aunt and my mum work here and I just don't feel like I can say anything. And then somebody else said, oh, I went in the lift the other day and somebody had written some graffiti on the inside of the lift door about me. And suddenly you started to kind of see lots of issues emerge across. And so that suddenly felt like a really important thing. So then we kind of went back and said, actually, we've reflected on what you've reflected on and disagree, and managed to eventually get a formal network and sponsorship to go to Pride in London. But we were called Pride in the Partnership. And then they said, oh, you can't use the logo. And I was like, well, you can't be Pride in the Partnership if you're like ashamed of shame in the partnership. So then they said, oh, what I'd done, and this is just, I was just like, well, those tire track logos that John Lewis had, I was like, we'll just make them into a rainbow. Did it on PowerPoint. It wasn't very good. And they said, oh, no, you can't do that to the brand. And I was like, well, what can I do? I'll give it to the brand team. And they came back with a logo for us. And I was like, makes us official, doesn't it? So yeah, I sort of went on this kind of journey of just doing stuff like that, and then thinking, this feels better than my day job. Like, there are things that I fundamentally think we could be doing better. So just going to spend a lot of time and energy doing that stuff. And then I was over in Selfridges and I was running the Selfridges Food Hall. And I'd wanted to work in sustainability. And I kind of thought, I've been really passionate. It's why. So I joined Waitrose on the grad scheme, because I really liked food, but also I really liked what they were doing in terms of provenance and farmers and coming from a fairly sort of rural farming community. And then, so I was trying to edge my way into sustainability, and I was just lucky enough to meet a director who kind of thought, I know what you know and I know how you act and I know how much you don't know about sustainability, but you can learn that. So, she took a bit of a punt, and I'm her fault.
I mean, I love that, because as I reflect back on my career, which was I don't have a very straightforward route. I fell into the automotive industry, and somebody saw me cleaning cars on the Edgware Road in London, and said, I think you could do this for me, because you're just chatting to everybody that comes in. You could probably sell for me. So they took a punt, right? And then I sat in front of somebody else and they took a punt, and sat in front of somebody else and they took a punt. And then I got to this place and somebody said, you should take a punt. Go for it, and but that's it. You need people around you. And I love that. I love that, people, your dad was a catalyst in many ways, not in the sense of pushing you forward, but in the sense of, no, I'm scrappy I do things differently. But in the same way that it's brought you to this place, what are you most proud of that you've achieved over the career to date?
I mean, setting up that network is definitely one, but I think from a sustainability point of view, banned glitter. Bearing in mind, like, I was working at Selfridges, and glitter, sparkly stuff. That, and I was a volunteer at Pride, so I became a volunteer at Pride in London for a really long time. So I was like, glitter feels like a big part of what's going on in my life. And so Selfridges had this campaign on single-use plastics, and they banned microbeads and straws ahead of legislation. And I was just like, glitter is literally, you put little bits of plastic on your face and then you wash it off in the shower and it's all going down the plug hole. It's microbeads. And somebody said, "Oh God, you're the fun police. Oh, you're coming," because I went off to balloons. And I was like, I've gone off to balloons and I've gone off to glitter at the same time. And they're like, "For fuck's sake, it's really boring." And balloons still make me a bit tweaky. And I've got a 5-year-old, so that's hard because they're everywhere. He's got balloons under his bed. But I said, I want to ban glitter. And so we said, okay, we'll make the business case. And I mean, glitter is worth a ridiculous amount of money in the beauty industry. So things with glitter. So first out, we defined what glitter is, because there's a lot of little bits of plastic in beauty products, and what it was made of and what it should be made of. And we spoke to various brands and they said, "Oh, we use this eco glitter." And it was like, so it kind of went down a fairly scientific sort of research point, came back and said, okay, we think if we give these brands 18 months, and we're not talking little brands, we're talking like the Estee Lauders, the L'Oreals, the huge brand houses, beauty houses. And some of them were on board, so Chanel were like, yeah, we don't use glitter at all. I mean, I suppose Chanel are not that kind of teen brand sort of plugging like massive kind of the glitter lip. But we had a lot of brands who were like, oh, we're not sure if we can do it in the timeline. And then we spoke to, there was this makeup artist, Pat McGrath. She's a brilliant, brilliant woman. She launched in the US, but she's British. And so she was kind of launching her brand in Selfridges, sort of new into the UK. And I was trying to have these conversations internally while her big customer-facing launch was get your glitter lip done. 40 quid to have your glitter lip done. And so I thought this was really hard to have. They had the glitter bar, like everything was very sparkly. So we said, look, these are the environmental impacts of glitter. This is what's happening to it. We don't think that's great. We think these are some viable alternatives. You guys are the experts in this, but we've done some research. And she said, yeah, we could do that. We'll reformulate in a year. And suddenly having this woman who is an absolute icon in the beauty industry turn around and go, yeah, we were going to do this. And then a few other brands kind of came on board. And so suddenly everybody kind of went, okay, there are ways of kind of creating alternatives. You're not going to lose a huge amount of money because we're going to still sell sparkly things. They're just not going to be made from plastic. And you can use lab-grown mica and like all of this stuff. So it felt a little bit David and Goliath. We'd kind of gone in and kind of gone, do you know what? We think this is the thing to stand up for. And much bigger brands were like, not sure. And then once we'd had that conversation, so I used to work at John Lewis. I just had a chat with someone at John Lewis, and we were like, we've done the work. We've engaged all these brands. So all you've got to do is offer the same product catalogue as we're having. And then, it became this kind of rolling stone where actually glitter is no longer quite so ubiquitous, and still people sparkle. It's all fine.
I'm fascinated to know if you had a day off where you didn't have your son, you didn't have to go to work, you didn't have to do the boring stuff that we all have to do, and you could just indulge yourself. How would you spend that day, Abby? Because running a fleet is hellishly challenging. You've got to relax somehow. How would you choose to do that?
I'd be in the woods. That's really easy. I never feel like I get enough time outside. So, I would be probably in a wildlife trust or woodland trust location near you. I would definitely just be out in the woods. Have you got the Merlin app? You heard of this? So
No,
Merlin.
tell us.
I love Merlin. So Merlin is a free app. I don't know why it's free because it's just brilliant. And it's like Shazam for birdsong. So you go outside and you've got all the birds and it tells you what they are. And I've learned quite a lot of birdsong as a result of that. And I just be kind of go for a walk somewhere. Ideally on a day like this, frosty, cold, bright. Just, perfect. Hip flask.
I'm sure you'd be delighted to know this, but I have a window in front of my camera and my screen here. And as you were speaking, a wren just popped up on the fence and just stood and looked. And I'm really conscious of those things. Every day there's robins and blackbirds and so on and so on. But a little wren.
I love a wren. They're like the hamsters of the bird world, aren't they?
You are that thing of joy that just pops up on the fence and just says, hello, I'm here and I'm doing stuff and I'm busy and it matters that I'm here. You are my wren. There you go.
So I'll change my name. Change my name on LinkedIn. Abby Wren.
Oh, don't.
Abby Wren.
Do you know what? I've been thinking about that. And Paul usually asks me a question and he says, have you got any final thoughts on our guest? And I'm going to get there before he does. And just say that, yes, your middle name should be Funky. So, A, Funky Chicken.
It will not surprise you to know I know most of the jokes. Well, I don't think I've heard that one. But we used to play this game where we would be like, who would have a great double barrel in work? And, the chicken double barrels quite a fun way with pretty much everything. But there was this woman who worked with us called Spring Weaver. And I was like, I just marry Spring Chicken. That'd be brilliant.
Has it been a blessing? Has your name been a blessing through your life, or do you think it's been a bit of a challenge?
No, it's been fun. There's a reason I'm married. I didn't change my name. She didn't want it. Sad.
Can't even give it away.
I think it's fun. I quite like it. I think it's memorable. So, I think most people, I meet a lot of people are like, oh, I've heard your name. I'm like, yeah, sure. Because there's not that many of us. I think blessing. It's a laugh, isn't it?
It is a laugh, but
this is the attitude, isn't it? This kind of you seem to go at everything that you do just like with this kind of chest out, thrusting forward kind of approach. And actually, you don't take the obstacles personally.
No. She just says, cluck that.
Oh, God.
I've got a whole heap.
Yes. Anyway, we could descend down a wormhole there. But what we're not going to do is descend down that wormhole. But we are going to do a tradition that we do have on the Evie Cafe Takeaway podcast. And that is to present you, Abby Chicken, with the magic wand.
Oh, wow. Okay.
As you can see, it has its little lightning bolt on there. And towards the end of every podcast, we present you with a magic wand. And so I'm going to pass the baton through the camera seat. So we just go, and there you go. And you grab the wand. And now that was clever. That was quick. I was like, wow, that was okay, good. So you have a magic wand and you're able to do something. What would that something be and why?
Oh, can I explode people? I probably can explode like the Bezos, Musk, Trump oligarchy. That would be fun. That feels quite negative, though, doesn't it?
Yes.
Up until, I was going to say about 2015, it felt like everything was sort of incremental gains. You fight a bit and people get more rights and things get better. And suddenly, since I'd say Brexit and kind of all of the joys that have come after COVID and everything else, it doesn't feel like that anymore. And I've got a now 6-year-old as of last week. And I would just like my magic wand to be like, I just want the world to be a better place for our children. Oh my God, I just said that. I sound like Michael Jackson or something. I believe the children of the future. It's not him. You know what I mean? But I do think that if we could, so many solutions are within our grasp, but it just takes big decision makers to kind of go, do you know what? Yeah, we're going to do this. We're going to do this differently. We are going to stick with the ZEV mandate. We are going to back nature, and we're going to, stop the decline of nature, and we're going to restore nature, and we're going to commit time and money and effort to do that. And we think that's important. So my magic wand would be probably over Parliament, get them to kind of go, come on, we're going to do the right thing. Stand up.
There you go. The right thing. And do you know what, Abby? I love the way that you transcend the subject. It's not just transport. It is. We've been talking about this in the EV Cafe for a little while now. That sustainability is this combination of a multitude of things that ultimately then delivers change for our society. And I love that this, like, you draw the direct comparison between transport and the changes that we can make there, and sustainability and reducing emissions, and nature, which is beautiful. And the whole time we've been talking, I, as a 13-year-old in the early 80s, canoed quite a lot, possibly outside of the school in Monmouth on the bridge. I don't know if there's a big old school that's there. So I did all that.
I learned to row on that stretch of water.
It's a beautiful stretch of water. But then, of course, Simmons Yacht and the way the Wye weaves down through the rapids that have been absolutely destroyed these days. They've all been sort of ordered. They used to be rough and ready, and it was brilliant. And, that is inspiring to me. And it seems like it sits there as an inspiration to you as well, that vision of the cold and misty morning, which is brilliant. I love it. And you've inspired me. I thought I was already inspired, but you've really inspired me to just kind of connect the dots.
Get back out in the canoe.
Thank you for that. I really appreciate it.
Well, is it a kingfisher? You've got a kingfisher behind you, I think, on your wall.
Yes, just up there.
One of you's
a
got a
kingfisher there and a ladybird there.
Yeah. Okay, so you go and find a kingfisher.
Yes.
When was the last time you saw a kingfisher? Just want to go and see a kingfisher again.
Not that long ago.
Okay.
When did it? Yeah. It was funny. I was doing some filming with the AA, and we were at a reservoir in London, and there was a group of people filming who we were rescuing. One of the ladies had lost the keys for the van, and we were doing the AA key assist, and in an electric van, yay! And they were filming kingfishers, and they just come back from literally having like a half an hour of this kingfisher fishing from just this branch, just kind of like just constant on the reservoir. So there you go. Anyway, John, you've already given your final thoughts, but do you have any others?
I do, mate. And it's something really important. Abby's one of our people. We created this word, Abby, which it makes no sense, but it means everything to us. And it's about being funner. So, dry facts, lots of analysis, doing the right thing, all that stuff can be a bit heavy. Mm-hmm. But we try and do it with a sense of humour. And the thing you have in abundance is a humility and a sense of humour, which makes what you say really cut through. You are funner. Love it.
Funner!
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I don't think I've ever said that. I've never said that to any other guest. No. You are funner.
Hooray.
Abby, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure to talk with you today. Hopefully people have got a picture of the change that you've driven in your career to date, but also the change that you're driving in BT and an Openreach in that role of sustainability. I think Mr. Walker, your teacher, has got a lot to be thankful for. He was great. Bit of a protagonist in crossing you off the list, but he got you back on the list and got you in the team. And it's really lovely. And I think I will probably call you Scrappy Doo next time I see you, because I think that just personifies you. It's great. The fun of Scrappy Doo. Brilliant. Well, listen, Abby, thank you again. And I'm thrilled to see what the next year holds in terms of the delivery of all of those vehicles. And I sort of know that all of the time there's going to be that Cox working away at the back, just kind of speaking direction and encouragement and motivation in the right way to the thousands of people that will be taking an EV for the very first time and going off into their neighborhoods, be they rural or urban, and making a difference to the nature and the world that we have around us. Fantastic. I'm really excited to see what this next year holds. So, Abby, thank you. Everybody, if you've enjoyed this podcast, you know we get to talk to some wonderful people just like Abby. Do check out the whole lot. They're on the EV Cafe org page. You can see us on YouTube if you wish. You can listen on Apple and Spotify, of course. And please, tell a friend. Tell a friend about the wonderful EV Cafe Takeaway podcast and everything else that goes on. But also, tell a friend about how wonderfully Openreach and BT are doing the whole sustainability and the transition to EV. It is possible, folks. Yes, it is. With all that in mind, have a great day. Thanks, guys.
See you later.
Thank you.